Hi everyone. So with the release of Age of Overlord came the Snake-Eyes archetype, which didn't really get much attention compared to the new splashable engines that were included in that set. I think it's a real shame. I think people wrote it off too quickly to the point where it's hard to even find videos on the archetype, and it feels very underexplored. Even the people exploring it seem to be mostly focused on the future support, but I believe it's good even now, and it'll only get better with Phantom Nightmare. So I really enjoyed deck building and decided to try my hand at video making to share what I've cooked up. Hopefully you enjoy. I plan on posting more deck builds on this channel for a variety of decks, so subscribe if that's the type of thing you're into. In this video, I'll go over the deck list, I'll show some of the combos, and I'll showcase some duels showing how the deck plays in different scenarios. I won't be reading the cards to you, it'll be more of a discussion on the deck building choices and how to use certain key cards, but an image of the card will be shown on the screen and its effect in full will be shown on the right hand side of the screen. As an overview of the deck, it's a combo heavy deck that focuses on swarming the board and putting up a heavy negate end board, or it OTKs going second through various destruction effects and making use of cards like Vicious Astrolabe and Access Code Talker. The deck has a lot of flexibility and a lot of flexibility in the extra deck as well. It can also run a fair amount of an on-engine. So just to give you some pros and cons of the deck, the pros are you get to generate huge advantage and put up a nasty end board. It has a lot of floating effects that makes dismantling the end board a pain for your opponent. The deck has really solid follow-up on turn 3. It's pretty strong going second as well. And it plays through hand traps with parallel lines. If one of them gets stopped, you can just pursue the other. Many hands actually push through nib, which is nice. The consistency is high, and even though there's a few cards you don't really want to draw, like Flamberge Dragon, these aren't hard garnets because they can all still be used if they're drawn. It's also a very deceptive deck, since if people see Diabellstar, they assume that you're playing Rescue Ace, and if they see Jen and Ken, they assume you're playing Mekanko or Dark World. If they see Wraitsoth, they often hand trap it, assuming it's Kashtira. It kind of makes it hard to figure out what you're playing and to know what to hand trap in this deck. So for some cons of the deck, as with most combo decks, this deck is vulnerable to Droll and D-Shifter. However, you can still set up the Snake-Eye half of the end board under Droll. Dark Ruler No More does hurt the end board. However, floating effects from the Snake-Eye stuff usually let you survive until the next turn, at which point you get that really good follow-up. So, if they don't kill you, there's a good chance you can come back. And the other thing is it's expensive. Basically got caught up in the crossfire of the Rescue Ace hype, so one posters are like $80 right now. Alright, so now the deck list. We have Diabellstar, the Black Witch, one of the core engines of this deck. She inherent summons herself and searches the original Sinful Spoil spell. The wanted poster beside her is just more copies of Diabellstar with an additional graveyard draw effect to draw 1, so it's kind of like Sky Striker Engage. The spell itself sends one face-up card on the field to summon any level 1 fire monster, and this gets you into the Snake-Eye engine, which is key. I see the Diabellstar Snake-Eyes engine as kind of an advantage engine, however, considering the discards it needs, it can be kind of neggy. So the trick to using it to print bodies on the board is to make use of other cards that stay on the field once you've used them to use as fodder. So things like field spells and continuous spells are ideal for this. This is why the Visas Planets engine is perfect for this, because it goes through a ton of field spells during its normal playthrough, and once used for the primary effect, you can use those field spells as fodder for the Snake-Eyes engine. Also, using these two engines together provides alternate lines if you get hand trapped on one. Now, when evaluating a deck, it's worth asking yourself, would I be better off playing just pure Manadium or pure Snake-Eye? The answer will differ from person to person, so I'll just give you my take. I think hands down this is the best way to play Snake-Eye. The Manadium engine adds so much in terms of extension and ceiling increase, along with providing the fodder needed to take advantage of what Snake-Eye is really trying to do. The synergy is crazy. In terms of pure Manadium, it's an extremely powerful deck in its own right, so the decision is a bit closer of a call in my opinion. The Snake-Eyes engine provides a different end board in the sense that both make 6 interruptions in the typical full combo end board. They're just distributed differently. Manadium is a lot more telegraphed, I think, and doesn't offer as many parallel lines that you can pursue in the same way. The combos followed by this deck are a little bit more non-linear in that sense. The Snake-Eye variant deck kind of increases the ability to go second, which is huge, with the searchable Kurikara through Ash that turns into an extender while blowing up their board without interrupting the flow of the combo at all, which is kind of cool. Additionally, it can put out additional bodies on board with inherent summons that kind of helps with Mana Diem's traditional problem when its bodies are removed. The last benefit is the added follow-up turn 3. So Mana Diem somewhat struggles with follow-up. The Snake-Eye engine gives you massive follow-up. If your opponent breaks your board, they have to contend with a bunch of floating effects from Flamberge Dragon and Diabellstar, which give you searches off of Ash, and you can add another fire monster back to your hand. And then using the graveyard effect of your original Sinful Spoil spell and also your wanted poster to get you a search and a draw means that you're starting turn 3 with a 5-card, maybe 6-card hand. For these reasons, I think it's worth it to run both together, in the sense that both of them together are at least as good as pure Mana Diem, and the Snake Eyes variant has aspects that are both better and worse than pure Mana Diem, but I would kind of just play both and see what you like better. Back to the cards. So in terms of Snake Eyes, I play 1 Ash, 2 Oak, 1 Birch, and 2 Flamberge. Ash searches any level 1 fire, Oak revives, Birch specials himself and can summon another Snake-Eye on the opponent's turn. I found this to be kind of as streamlined as I could make it. It may seem like this is a lot of normal summons with some of the rest of the cards in the deck, but for the most part, you're going to special summon these through the original Sinful Spoil spell. You only normal summon them when you really have nothing better to do, so you don't have to worry about that. This is also the reason I only play 1 Ash. It's all you need. You're not really using him as a normal summon starter. I play 2 Oak, 1 to pass through during your combo turn 1, so you have him in the graveyard for his floating effects, like when Flamberge gets popped and he resummons them back, you get a bunch of bodies. And the other one is for follow-up that gets searched off of the original Sinful Spoil's graveyard effect on turn 3. Which you can normal summon, and then you recover one of the others from the graveyard that turn. So I have 2 Flamberge Dragon, because you need to kind of cycle them. Play around with Snake Eyes for a bit, and the reasoning for that will kind of become apparent. Next up, we have the Jen and Ken engine. Probably one of my favorite parts of this deck. They are funny. These have a lot of synergy with this strategy. First of all, they serve as consistency cards, letting you sculpt your hand and draw into your other engines. The big funny is when you end up activating both Ken and Gen in one turn. So at one point in the Mana Diem combo, you summon Vicious Astrolaud with Cross Sheep on the board. So you go Chainlink 1, Cross Sheep, Chainlink 2, Vicious Astrolaud. The Astrolaud pops the Gen or the Ken that you gave to your opponent. It goes to your graveyard, and then Cross Sheep summons it back to your field, so you can use its effect to summon another one to their field, getting the second effect, and then you can pop it later with Brone so they don't even get that body. It's worth doing that second pop as a last step in your combo, since another benefit of Gen and Ken is to make Imperm dead, because you need no cards on the field to use it from hand. So basically, it's an Imperm eater. Another funny is that it turns on Triple Tactic's Talent turn 1. So it's possible that you use Gen or Ken, whatever the one that gets you the draws, to draw 2, and then use Triple Tactic's Talents to draw 4 in one turn, and you end up going +2. And that actually comes up quite a bit. The biggest funny is when you do all of that in one turn. So you draw 4 and you rip one from their hand and watch them just 1,000-yard stare at you like the jungle is talking. Did I mention that this turns Kurikara into an extender turn 1? Then we have Terraforming, because this deck loves field spells, and it gives you a modality with being able to access Pressure Planet Wraitsoth, whatever, or Peaceful Planet Calarium. There's 3 Peaceful Planet Calariums after this, so this is the Mana Diem part of the deck. 3 Visas Starfrost, and then the typical Mana Diem Scareclaw engine, which is 1 Scareclaw Reichheart, 1 Primitive Planet Reichphobia, and 1 Scareclaw Arrival. Since the Mana Diem engine is so strong and needs bodies on the board, I would try to bait hand traps with the other engines first before committing to this one. But you also want to maximize the use of your field spells so that you're using the Snake Eyes effects on them. So that's part of the reason I find this deck fun, because it requires a bit of thinking. The way these cards are used will be shown in the combo section. One thing you want to note is that you can get a free draw off Reichheart if you special summon him with 3 defense position monsters on board. So that's another thing you want to plan around. And if you haven't noticed, we're going to be doing a lot of drawing in this deck, so please, for the love of God, do not add Pot of Prosperity. Please. Next is what I would consider the non-engine. I play 11, the bottom row, and Kurikara. I have Kurikara because she is a godsend as a board breaker. She is very searchable. It's also an extender going second and sometimes first, and she's also a 1-star fire, so she can be recovered from the grave with Snake-Eye Oak. So added back to the hand, reused again, whatever. Look at the top row of this deck. That is a potential 11 additional Kurikaras because they all search her. What is Pearly? Next, the Kashtira engine. So great board breakers, another inherent summon body for your Visas engine. You can banish a Ken or a Jen from their field if you have no other way to remove the body using the Fenrir. And you'll almost always search Kashtira Scareclaw with Fenrir's effect, which can get you into like a miniature version of the Scareclaw engine, which helps extend in a pinch. And it also lets you play through Nib with a lot of lines. So then we have 2 Triple Tactics Talent, amazing modal card. It's a board breaker, it's a consistency card, and it's also basically a war crime with Jen and Ken. And then there's 2 Triple Tactics Thrust, for the same reasons as Talents basically. Also, it can be a good card going first with Jen and Ken. Can also search any of your other engines you're missing through the normal spells like Reinforcement of the Army, Terraforming, and Original Sinful Spoils. So kind of broken. And, it's expensive, so Ash is an okay replacement if you don't have Thrust. So 1 Imperm and 1 Harpie's Feather Duster as thrust targets, which essentially means you have 3 copies of each to help you avoid getting Floodgated or Barrier Statued going second. I'm looking at you, Chimera. And then we have 1 Instant Fusion. You have some utility slots in the extra deck, so running a Millennium-Eyes Restrict is worth it, in my opinion. Use this card first if you see it. Second, if you have a Fenrir in hand. It's basically a Call by the Grave, as it can equip any hand traps that they throw down, and then it negates them when it's equipped. I prefer it to Call by the Grave because it's also an extender, extra body good, and is actually kind of a decent board breaker in the same way as Fenrir. No one tends to want to waste a negate on an instant fusion, so you plop this ugly piece of lasagna on the board, and then if the opponent tries to use their negate later, you're going to suck them up unless they negate the restrict. So he can trade pretty well for the amount of effort you put into him, which is basically 0. Also, he does equip a monster or a hand trap, which you can use as fodder for Snake Eyes, which is pretty funny. Also, you can resummon him using Flamberge or Cross Sheep for an extra negate, since Instant Fusion counts as a proper fusion summon. So yeah, he feels really good here. For the extra deck, we have Anima, which is just an absolutely free yoink that you can get off quite often. It doesn't interrupt anything you're doing with the Snake-Eye combo in any way, and you just pass through him with the Snake-Eye combo. He's cuttable if you feel like running something else. And then we have Almiraj simply here just so that you can link off Gen in order to summon Visas Starfrost. So that's because Visas requires a different attribute and type, plus he's cute. Next we have the Scareclaw Engine, Light-Heart, Cross Sheep, Vicious Astrolaud. These are basically just extenders that you need. Watch the combo section for how they're used. Then we have Scareclaw Reichheart. So it's a utility card and totally cuttable. It's a pretty great floodgate and annoying to deal with for the opponent. And there's one line where this card allows you to play through Nib if you go balls to the wall with the Visas engine. Celine would be a decent alternative here. Then we have Dark, my Yoinky Sploinky emo kid. He is great for going second. He helps a lot for getting to that access code by summoning something from their graveyard, especially now that everyone's running SP Little Knight and the IP as well. He is cuttable though. Next we have IP Masquerena, which is just simply an essential part of your end board. And then SP Little Knight, which probably doesn't need any introduction, but hey, it lets you beat over monsters with less than 1500 attack and only costs 2 materials and a month's paycheck. So contemplate your frail existence as you pay out your limited time on this earth for a piece of foiled cardboard. Anyways, we have Barone, which has a flower for a head and could be made with a Visas engine. Enough said. We have Appaloosa, we have Goddess in the Underworld, and Access Code Talker, the big three of Link 4s and 5s, I guess. Need I say more? We have Edgy Zeus because he is amazing going second and can help give you that final push to break the board and let you, or you kind of let your follow-up do the rest. And then Real Zeus can also be played if you want to cut some of the cuttable cards I mentioned. In that case, I would include Fuko, Downward Magician, and Zeus. But however, I prefer maximizing the Link strategy, just seems to work better. So the side deck is pretty typical and also meta dependent. Going second, if it's a matchup I really need to stop with hand traps or else I can't play the game, you can side out an Oak, maybe a Gen, sometimes a Visas, because the 6th card you get from going second gives you added consistency anyways. D-Barrier and Dark Ruler are just there for thrust targets. I don't play Herald of the Abyss because of the searchable Kurikara, which deals with Pearly anyways. Anti-Spell and siding in the extra Call by the Grave are the MVPs of going first. Anti-Spell protects you from Dark Ruler, which is a weakness of the board, and it shits on most decks, honestly. They are way more likely to side in Droll than run it in the main this format, so siding in Called By works.